Hi everyone, this is Rainier Masa from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the United States, and I'm going to present our work testing for measurement invariance using the Household Food Insecurity Axis Scale. Measurement invariance is similar to confirmatory factor analysis, except that with measurement invariance, we are interested in testing whether increasingly constrained or stringent models are acceptable compared to the previous model. One of the main reasons for using measurement invariance is to establish that different groups within our sample consistently understand the sets of questions and responses in a conceptually similar way. When do we use, or when should we use measurement invariance? It is particularly useful to use measurement invariance when we are involved in a research project or an evaluation that includes comparisons of groups and that differences between and across those groups have substantive meaning. For this particular presentation, we tested for measurement invariance using the Household Food Insecurity Axis Scale, one of the more commonly used experience-based food insecurity scale. The scale comprises 9 items, and here are the 9 items that comprised the scale. One of the requirements for testing measurement invariance is that there should be evidence of the instrument's psychometric quality, particularly construct validity. There have been a number of prior validation studies using the Household Food Insecurity Axis Scale, and all studies showing construct validity of the scale, with studies having been conducted in Tanzania, Iran, and Ethiopia, to name a few. For the research question that we examined, it pertains to establishing whether different groups of youth interpret the Household Food Insecurity Axis Scale in a conceptually similar manner. Answering this question in a statistically rigorous way helps us ensure that the comparisons we make represent true differences in our construct of interest and not due to some other factors. We use a cross-sectional design with data collected from 4,289 youth in Ghana. The youth were participating in a youth development project also in the country. Data were collected in 2014 using interviewer-administered questionnaire. Our youth respondents were between the ages of 15 and 24, and for this invariance testing, we tested by gender and by age group. Here is the sample distribution. There's a 50-50 split with gender, 50% male, 50% female. With the age group, 15% were middle adolescents, or those between the ages of 15 and 17. 54% were late adolescents, or those between the ages of 18 and 20 years old, and 31% were emerging adults, or those between the ages of 21 and 24. In terms of the prevalence of food insecurity, nearly 70% reported food insecurity, including nearly 36% who reported experiencing severe food insecurity. The steps for invariance testing that we followed in our analysis included testing for configural invariance, metric invariance, and scalar invariance. Each step tested a different parameter. For configural invariance, we tested whether the same factor structure applies to different groups. For metric invariance, we tested whether the construct have the same meaning across different groups. And for scalar invariance, we tested whether differences in scale scores represents true levels of the underlying food access construct. It is important, or it is required, to demonstrate scalar invariance for us to validly compare scores across groups. The particular the factor structure model that we tested in this study is based on prior research, and that is the one factor structure model, which you can see on the slide. All 9 items of the Household Food Insecurity access scale loaded onto one factor, which we call here household food insecurity. Given sensitivity to sample size, we use other model fit indices than chi-square. And so these fit indices included the root mean square error of approximation, Tucker-Lewis index, and comparative fit index, with the acceptable and unacceptable values listed on the slide. When we were comparing the different models, we used the chi-square difference testing. And the logic behind the chi-square difference testing is if the decrease in fit is not statistically significant, then parameter estimates can be considered invariant and constrained to be equal across groups. Here are the results of our invariance testing, and I want to point your attention to the model comparison at the bottom of towards the bottom of the slide. There's the comparison between metric and configural and scalar against metric. The key result here is that the p-values were statistically not significant, meaning that the fit did not significantly decrease when we added additional constraints on our model. Individual model fit for configural, metric, and scalar invariance are shown on the top half of the results, with the CFI and TLI values above the thresholds and the RMSEA values considered to be adequate or acceptable. For the age, results based on age were similar or consistent with the results based on gender. Again, the bottom half on the slide of results shows the statistically non-significant p-values when we added additional constraints on the parameters. Having demonstrated that the fit did not significantly decrease when we further constrained our model, we then look at the results of the individual model fit for each of the three steps for invariance testing. Again, CFI TLI values above the threshold, with the RMSEA values considered acceptable. So what does this mean? What do our results mean? We found that the household food insecurity access scale is invariant by gender and age. Configural invariance means that we found same pattern of factor loadings hold across groups. That is, the same 9 items measure the same food insecurity construct by youth's gender and age. When we say metric invariance, in addition to measuring the same food insecurity construct, the individual items has the same meaning to participants across groups. And this is evident by statistically equivalent factor loadings. In terms of scalar invariance, we were able to demonstrate through statistically equivalent thresholds that the young people in our study, regardless of age and gender, were responding to the 9 items in similar ways. And thus we can say that the responses to those items are caused by differences in true levels of the underlying construct and not other causes. So in terms of implications, we know that we have to establish invariance in order to validly compare mean scores on the household food insecurity access scale across groups. If we are to compare groups, we cannot validly compare scores if our measure is non-invariant, because non-invariance, including non-invariance of the threshold, may suggest that there are other factors influencing the way that youth respond to the items in your questionnaire. Or in the case of the household food insecurity access scale, there might be social norms or developmental differences that are influencing youth's response to the items, and it's not because of the underlying construct or their differences on the underlying construct. And thank you.